Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziol.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Joining me today is Kurek, founder and president of Frontrunners Development. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to be seen. Good to have you. We're both in we're just explaining how far away we seem to be from civilization.
And yet we're both on the East Coast.
Right, right. You're on an island and I live in bliss. So.
Yes.
Well, Mary, thank you for being on the show. I wanted to have you on here because it seems like you have your hands in so many great things that are going on. And why don't you just give us a little bit of an intro about yourself and your company and what you guys do?
Okay. Well, maybe I should start with what I do and then work my way backwards. I think that might make more sense.
Perfect.
Basically, I conduct business development in impact spaces. And the way I define impact is basically anything that would positively impact the quality of life on planet Earth as we know it. So it at one point kind of took form in, wrapping itself around all the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which basically, that's just everything that touches your life. Is really what's involved in the Sustainable Development Goals. The last one, however, is where I live. That's my sweet spot. And that's number 17, which means partnerships for all the goals. And so if you don't get that right, you're never going to get those 16 before that right. And I knew that being a networker. So I kind of developed my business around that and became a business developer, have sort of my own model and protocol for how I bring people to me that I think I can do something with. So as a business developer, it's my job to connect the people that have the solutions with the people that are looking for those solutions. And so the best way that I know how to do that is kind of like you found with your podcast, is to be able to bring people to me, interview them, find out what they're doing. If they've got a solution, what it is. I love innovators, so almost everybody I bring to me has some kind of really interesting take on how to solve a problem, whether that be programmatic or that actually is a product, a medical device, whatever it may be. So they've got an innovation. So I call them the world's problem solvers. On the yin of that yang is would be maybe the diplomats or the government officials or the NGO leaders or those other people who are looking for those solutions. And sometimes they're not even sure that or understand that they're looking for those until you get them in a conversation and you let them know, hey, did you know that there's this innovation out there that does this water extraction thing or this, this medical device now that does this? And they're like, what? It's like, yeah, light bulb moment. So that media platform that I have, my podcast, is my way of bringing those people to me. Once I interview them, I drop them into what I call my Frontrunners League. That's my business development pool. Those are the people I draw from first to make those connections. Sometimes it's purely an impact partnership. That's fine too. It's part of my impact, right? I look at it that way. But everything else is business. So it's doing well by doing good. So the way I got there is just like this sort of weird roller coaster trip of, I say God trying to help me get there. So get to the place where I could do this. Right. And that was early on. My first job was working in the press office of the governor of the state of North Carolina. And so I was the youngest member of the governor's staff. And I felt it every day because I didn't feel like I had the chops some days to be able to do what I was doing. But I did get to travel with him. I got to write news releases and eventually, speeches and, work with the Capitol Press Corps, which is, our state version of the Washington, Press Corps. And from there, ended up with international programs, hence got comfortable working with international diplomats and that sort of thing. And ended up running a chamber of commerce for about 8.5 years. So working with startups and entrepreneurs, slap up against the world's largest Marine Corps air station, where people that were becoming entrepreneurs were usually guys getting out of the Marine Corps that didn't have that sensibility of always having done, things by command. Now we're doing things by consensus.
Mhm.
And so it's a little different mindset. So working through that, hung out my shingle as a marketing consultant at one point and coached, other startups, and evolved into writing a book about networking, and got, endorsed by the American Businesswomen's Association for that. Did my little troop around selling the book, that you
Yeah.
got to do in speaking, which I was not happy about, but I did it anyway. So and then from there, just everything kind of evolved by, moving the media piece of me and the writer piece of me into place and connecting it to the networking piece of me,
Mhm.
which is the connect the dot, sort of thing. So it kind of all came together into this business that got named by one of my advisory board members, who called me while I was at a conference one day and said, "You need to call this Frontrunners." Call the people that you've collected, that you're curating, Frontrunners League of Social Impact Innovation, and call your business Frontrunners. And I'm like, got it, done. So, thank you. So yeah, and that's where I've situated for a number of years. I think we're, the business itself has had a couple of names, but I think I'm sitting about 8 or 9 years proper right now with that. Before that, I was making connections in, of all things, and this is one of those surprises, video games industry.
Oh, very
I don't
cool.
play video games, but I got connected through Twitter with somebody who was a .com genius that was going into the gaming industry, and he got me in, and I situated there for a while because they were, I always say the 16-year-old in the basement with his best friend and a dog that's inventing, this game, doesn't realize the business that he's building. He thinks he's building a game when he's trying to really build a business. And you're not going to hit the Angry Birds thing and then go off and buy yourself a yacht. You're not likely to do that.
Right.
But I situated there for a long time and ended up moving my Twitter account once it got to the big space. I ended up on a VIP pass going to E3 in Los Angeles the first year I was doing it. It was a very hungry space, so it kept me busy for quite a while. And I ended up kind of moving that Twitter account off to somebody else, kind of like selling it off and moving more properly into this space. And it wasn't until I found social entrepreneurship that it really hit, with me, as far as a heart thing at my age to connect to. So Impact World is my world. So that's the long answer to your question.
Well, I should have started off with like, what haven't you done? I mean, that's a lot. You've done a lot already. And there's so much to unpack there. And earlier, before we were recording, we were talking how we seem like the sort of similar people as well. And I took a long road to where I am today. And the podcast, like you said, is uplifting people like yourself, trying to get the word out there. But also, like in my full-time job, I work at the Center of Excellence in Data Science, and we're looking for business partners to solve data challenges and bring business and economic impact to New York. So a lot of cool things happening with you, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about your passion that is coming up, is bubbling up in your first answer, but like what really makes you drive towards doing these things to positively impact the world, really?
I think because it's so visual for me. I'm a visual learner anyway. And when I could see something happening that I was a part of, and honestly, I'm 65, getting ready to turn 66. This is my legacy builder right here. This is the last thing I'll probably ever do in my life. I absolutely love it. I know that this is what I was meant to do, which is really weird that it took me so long. I've loved every job I've had. Honestly, I've absolutely adored working with the governor. I still connect with some of the staff that I used to know there. And I loved working with the Chamber of Commerce. I did a stint of about 8 years working with the county that I live in as a sort of leader in, I'd say, managerial leader in aging services. So I knew that space, and it was very timely because I was caregiver for my grandmother and also for my mother for a short period of time. And so learning the resources that you need to have to be able to do that effectively was really key for me. So I appreciated that and loved working there. So I've learned an awful lot, but this is what I've been meant to do. So, and I know it. But I think that the passion, the driver for me, like I say, is that legacy builder. For me to be able to see that when I've been able to, say, connect, I'm just going to name it, Chizzy Island in Malawi, through a partner, an NGO partner, Moses Busher, and the NGO leader of that, Jorgis Foundation, which is Alina Pelka out of Poland. When I've been able to connect those dots with a partner of mine working on another project in the US who is very tied to the Rotary Club and International Rotary, understands all that, was able to collect enough money through 3 Rotary clubs, partner with a 4th in Malawi, and us to buy a boat, just a regular little boat with a motor on it, for that island who was losing people's lives being able to get from the island to the mainland in time enough to give birth to a child or to get somebody to a hospital for emergency help, and cut that trip down from about almost an hour, sometimes more than that, down to about 15, 16 minutes, then that is what makes my heart beat. Something like that. Now, that doesn't sound like business, but it is for them, because it wasn't an outright handout. It became an enterprise for them to make money in that island, to be able to roll that money back into other projects that will service that island. And now we're rolling into another Rotary project for that same area. So, it's part of that development of, 3 continents, 4 Rotary clubs, an NGO, me, and all these different parties that made that happen. And then now we've got this core group of people that can do other businessy things, like get some things exported and get a smart city project going on that we've been working on for 2 years in Malawi with the president there and our boots on the ground, diplomat that's there helping us make it happen. So it's a little bigger than just the boat, but the boat really made me, get tickled. I got tickled over that. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing because it takes sort of a visionary to kind of be able to see how all these things can fit together, and probably starts with your network, right? People that and knowing so many and how they can connect and what they're passionate about and what makes them tick. Can you go over a little bit how that process works for your company? How do you identify some of these things? How can you get from Rotary in US to Poland to how do you get to that point? That sounds like such an amazing it's magic.
It's magic. It's networking magic. No, actually, I think it's a critical mass situation. Like I said, I've been doing this a number of years. I've been doing the interviews for a really long time. And so now I have probably, say, 560, somewhere around there, people I've interviewed. Those are people that not just names like on a LinkedIn, or any other platform that you would have. I know them because I've spent at least 45 minutes, if not 2 hours over the course of several conversations with them. I know who they are in their heart. I know what their direction is. I know what they're doing. If they keep up with me, I try to keep up with them, that I know if they've got a new direction, what's going on. Had somebody hit me up this morning saying, "Hey, I'm in the US and I want to talk," because he's in Africa. He's been in Africa for a long time. So when you keep up with that and you have the relationships, and that's key. It's not just a networking thing where you're extracting information and then giving it back for business purposes. It's a relationship. And so when that relationship is built on trust, because you have spent some time with that person and they trust you and you trust them, then that's where business can happen. That's where impact can happen, all of that. So it's that critical mass. I've done enough of it now. I know who they are and I know who I can pull forward. And what I've gotten to do lately that's really been good, and this is an idea for any podcaster out there, is when you have a guest on that that has sort of a bend in a certain direction, I invite a co-host that has a relevant interest. And cool. The conversation becomes richer. It takes the onus off of me, especially if it's a subject I don't know very much, about. Then I have somebody who knows a little bit more. I have twice pulled somebody in as a co-host who offered to fund that person's project on camera.
That's very cool.
On camera, that happened. And I'm like, does he realize he's on camera saying this? And then other partnerships that started to form. And then I realized later people are talking, that I put them together and they're talking separately, which is fine too. But it is that space that you give them to get to know each other. That's that space I give them to get to know each other. It's now that I've got so many, then I know immediately, as soon as I get a hold of somebody and they say, I've got somebody with a lithium mine, that has a problem. I've got somebody with this that's looking for this. They know now to bring the problems to me, and they know I've probably got a solution. I don't have to solicit or recruit guests really anymore. They just, I mean, if I see them I like the idea of what they're doing, then I'll pull them together toward me. If not, then other people are starting to send them to me. I have 3 introductions right now sitting in my inbox that I need to process, that I need to look at and see if there's a fitter there. So, you know, it's just getting to know the people, and then them knowing who you are in your core, that you're kind of a problem solver or a facilitator. And then it comes forward. Sometimes they're big projects. Sometimes they're just little. I mean, I had a business developer from Ghana call me and say, I've got a chancellor here from a university who says they're dying for dormitory facilities, for what they call hostels for the youth. And do you know anybody? And I said, yeah, I think I do. And so started that phone call situation. Then he comes back to me, he said, it's not just this one university, it's all 9 of the universities in Ghana that need this.
Wow.
Well, different story. I gotta go back to the drawing board. But you know, so you get that kind of reaction from people. If you do it well enough and long enough, people are going to know who you are. I don't care where you are in the world, and they're going to find you.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. I mean, that's kind of how I connected with you, was, you know, another mutual connection connected us. And, you know, how do you keep track of all that? Do you just have one of those minds that locks everything away? Or like, you know,
I don't know if you can see it, but behind me there's a board on my door. That for the things that are in process, that, you know, that I know are in process, go on the board. The things that are not yet in process are usually up here or on an Airtable chart that I use. And that I, you know, if I brought somebody for, because I do a lot of referral agreements with people that I feel like fall into serious impact, or I don't know anybody else who's doing what they're doing.
Right.
And if that's the case, then they become a really hot resource for me. So, you know, so yeah, I keep track of it on the board.
Wow, very cool. So how does, all right, so it sounds like everyone, it doesn't sound like a category, but like, are there a particular organization or a particular type of person that, you know, becomes a front runner? Like, you know, what are the, I mean, the common traits that you tend to see?
Credentials. I look for serious credentials. If I'm working with an innovator, I want to be able to see in their bio what they've done to show me that they know what they're doing in the space that they want to be in, or that they're starting up in. And I want to know that, because that's what an investor is going to ask. Now, I don't look for investments per se, because I'm not FINRA certified, but I do know people who do that. And so, you know, just like Andy and some of the other people we know that do that sort of thing, that kind of will point people in the right direction. So, but I know that those are the, you know, I know the questions they're going to ask. And so I will go ahead and ask that in advance to find out if they really are, you know, solidly set in what they're doing. Really helps if they're already on market. They got some traction on the, you know, wherever they're going with it, already got some backing or something like that, and they put some of their own money in it. But I look for credentials, and that's not just for people who are looking for money. That's anybody that I might work with in terms of, on the flip side of things, if they're looking for a solution, I want to know that they're serious. I want to know where they are in government as a diplomat, or what, you know, NGO or board they serve on, that they're like, sometimes they're serving on a board and they're looking on behalf of the board. Now, aside from all that, I partner with other business developers just like me, because 9/10 of my work comes through another business developer. I just mentioned the guy in Ghana. He's a business developer there. Okay. And so very few projects am I self-generating. Once in a while, like the project in Malawi working on, that was self-generated, just because I could see the opportunity between the two parties. But not often does it happen like that. It's usually somebody bringing something to me. So I've written a course actually to help those people who might want to do what I'm doing. So if anybody's interested in that being a sideline or being a full line of what they want to do, I'm happy to talk to them. But I'm always looking for serious people that do what I do, that have good connections, networks. Just got off a phone call with somebody in a global space that's doing that. And what drew me to him is he's podcasting too. I was a guest on his podcast, not a guest like this, but just a participant on his podcast when he was interviewing the former woman president of Mauritius.
Oh, wow.
And I was so impressed with that guest that he had on, and how he helped, you know, handle that situation. He and I have now gotten connected. And I said, these are the types of people I want to be talking to as well. I have a few of them. You've got some on your end of things. Let's talk. So
yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, I haven't had any presidents on my podcast yet. We'll see, or even past presidents. We'll have to. That's something to.
I think ambassadors and
Yeah.
lots of diplomats that are wanting to talk about the cool things that are going on. I had a guy from, I think it was Dubai or somewhere in the Middle East. Anyway, he was a Ministry of Health. He's now into economy. And at the time I was talking to him, he says, we're looking at innovation. We want to have an innovation hub here. That's been like 3 years ago. I went back to him and I said, is that still your hot thing right now? Because I've got people I want to interview to you. I want to interview and take to you. So so it's, it's really interesting to kind of, play in that field of not just having a guest on and letting it go, but just, hello, what can we do with you?
You're kind of like this gatekeeper, but you also have like windows open that you're sending people through and like, come around back on the, it's just, I'm amazed even with that whiteboard, how you can keep track of it all. That's so cool. And so is there a particular project or, thing that you worked on that you're just like super proud of that you'd want to share to kind of give us an example of something you've done aside from the boat? Like, I think the boat was really cool.
I know you knew that was a light up that lit me up like big time. And I just, because I saw the pictures of the residents, when they took the maiden voyage out, and it was just like so amazing. But it's the project that myself and a former U.S. congressman, who's also a former U.S. ambassador to Denmark, who he and his business partner own and operate Climate Prosperity Enterprise Solutions. They are the provider and the developer of this hybrid version of a smart city that that was the project I saw between Malawi and them. And I thought they need to have it because they're one of the 8, poorest countries in the world. And at that point in time, I had already interviewed the diplomat that owns the big farm in Malawi that's their, honorary consul general from Malawi to Israel, and he is Israeli. So I get that a little bit confused sometimes. He is Israeli, but he also owns the farm in Malawi. So he's back and forth, and connecting him to my diplomat started and launched this whole project that we're now all partners in. And we just got the president to sign off on a feasibility study that we're getting ready to do. And that's been like a 2-year run. So getting all the partners in place and that, I'm really proud of that. I want to live long enough to see that the shovel in the ground and the smart city life, but it's so well put together and it's so transparent. It'll be everybody involved in it's very faith oriented about not only it, but our own separate faith based, piece that we're bringing to it. And I'm just, I'm real proud of it. I just think it's gonna change that country, and it's, for the better. And it's also going to be a model to change other countries once it gets going. That's
so cool. And what a legacy to kind of leave and have. And I hope that I see that picture of you with the dirt and the hard hat.
Me too.
I just had this great vision here, throw in the dirt, So that's so cool. Do you get to go to those things often? Like if you do break ground on
not
something?
Often. No, I work virtually mostly, but that is definitely on the goal board. When that gets ready to launch proper, I'm sure we'll all go to Lilongwe and watch it happen. And I'm sure our partners from the Yorgos Foundation will be able to meet them there, and it'll be terrific. It's just going to be terrific. I can't wait. So,
that's awesome. So a little earlier in the podcast, you talked about this being a business, and you have to make a living. So I'm just curious. I usually don't ask these kinds of questions on this podcast, but how do you make money on this? Like, how does that work?
How that works is usually through a contracted situation. It's flexible. It takes form in different ways depending on who you are. If I were also running, like, say, a coaching business and then doing this on the side or as a value added, it might look a little different. But this is what I do all day long. I'm on phone calls all day long. My calendar is full, guys. I'm just telling you, it's crazy. When you get into it, they find you. So the way it works is either I've been contracted for flat rate. It depends on if it's a product that's already on market, flat rate, and then if somebody I bring forward hits, then there would be maybe another commission on top of that. It's also taken form in a flat fee per month, where I've had a client that was looking to meet. He was bringing a product from another country here. It wasn't on the market yet here. It was on the other places, but he has to go through FDA here because it was a medically oriented product. And what he needed was contacts in certain or certain spaces. And so it was my job to kind of keep him in meetings or meeting these types of people, so that by the time he moved his operations here, he would be kind of set up with some contacts that he would have, or pool of good contacts. It's also, a paid advisor or paid consulting situation. Sometimes I'm in that mode right now with a couple of people, and occasionally, I might get some stock or, offerings, or, some equity in a business. They might offer me that. And if I feel like that is a good thing, then I will take them up on that as part of compensation. It may not be full compensation, but it might be part. But there is not any innovator that I work with that I wouldn't be willing to accept that with, because I always take very credentialed, already got some traction types of people. So I know they're going somewhere. So when they get to exit, Mary's going to be happy. Very happy.
So cool. I knew that wasn't going to be a simple answer. I kind of felt, there was that social, I think it was media kind of thing where the guy like started with a paperclip and traded up, I almost see that. So
I get people sending me product all the time to try out as well. And so, I just parceled out some good product out to a couple of places here locally that I thought might be interested. When I was in the video games industry, I got people sending me all kinds of cool stuff that I just gave to my kids for Christmas. All kinds of cool, the cool headphones that are branded with, the latest Spider-Man movie or something. I don't know, but it was it was great. So
awesome.
But the mainstay is definitely going to be the contracted monthly. I like that best, because then you can depend on that. But I'm not unhappy with some equity in the business as well. So.
Well, I mean, it really just lines up with everything you're talking about. There's just so many different things that you pull in from so many different areas. So why wouldn't you do the same thing with being compensated? Because you never know where that's going to land you. I mean, I don't have the largest podcast audience, but what I really do appreciate is, like, a few weeks ago, I got a call from a guest saying, hey, I got, a couple clients because they heard the show and they knew who I was based upon my personality and all the things that came forth in the show. And he just called to thank me. And I just think that's
fantastic.
Great. Right. So, and I'm sure you're getting things like that, and being, having a course and teaching people how to do what you do. You're making these impacts all over the place. Can you share maybe a story?
Like I said, I'm at the age now, my kids are not going to take over my business. So I need to have some people out there that care like I do, that have the heart for doing impact and also doing business at the same time. And that's kind of the mindset that I'd be looking for. People who are really good networkers anyway. And this is just a step up, and figuring out how to, I think a lot of people think, well, that's just a favor you do for people. Well, when it gets to be a business favor, and you're leaving money on the table that they'd be willing to give you, then it takes a different form. And the funny thing is, I ran into recently, and I've signed with them, an organization, a whole company that has 103 Marys right now. 103 Marys and Annies right now. And they have figured out how to curate the business developers into certain verticals and work on helping to process those deals that come and projects that come forward. And the soul is there. I've had several conversations with the founder. They're in my state, so I probably get to meet them at some point in time. And it comes through a trusted source. I'm loving what I'm seeing so far. So I never knew something like that existed, but I'm doing that as well as doing my own thing. But it just gives me a bigger pool to play in.
Well, and being open to that is so important. Like I've worked, or talked to coaches or people that will not communicate in almost any way with competitors, or someone they perceive as a competitor or potential competitor. And it's the short-sightedness is just gonna possibly run them out of business themselves, right?
You need to look at that as a potential collaboration or partnership, not a competition. I mean, if you look at it as competition, you are leaving projects on the table. I can promise you that.
For sure. And your potential customers or clients, like, if you're able to send them off to someone else, right, to say, hey, I think I can do some great work with you, but also this person and this person come to mind, and they'll know that they can come back to you, right? They will trust you more with that, kind of a
I
referral.
refer people off if it's somebody I can't do anything with, but the way that it works with me, if I give you somebody, then I might, hope that you would like give me a little referral fee. And that's happened before, and vice versa. I am very much about giving back referral fees that people that are sending them to me. If they just drop them off on my doorstep and leave, they're going to get a little referral fee. If they do a warm introduction and they're on the first phone call, they get more.
That's awesome. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't like chatted about that you definitely want to share about your company or what you do that the listeners just need to know, about you?
I think the thing to know is I'm very global, and if you're doing business anywhere, I assume many people can see your podcast anywhere. Really, I have a very global audience. I work very globally with the types of impact you've already seen that, here in our conversation. But I probably have a little bit more of a dedicated focus on Africa right now, just because there's so much need, so much going on that's coming forward from there. And people really, diaspora particularly, that are, people from Africa all over the world that are coming forward trying to do something good back home. So I kind of do a lot of work there, but I'm always looking for good business developer, colleagues. We mentioned that. Feel like I need to get that mindset piece set in there and have them understand how I do business. So that hence the course. And I'm willing to discount that for anybody that comes forward and presents himself as serious about working with me. The other thing to know is, the network needs to be diverse. I'm very diverse. And the thing is, you're never going to solve one problem in the same industry. It almost never happens that way. So if somebody has a gap, you're going to be looking all through your network for the type of person that's going to fill that gap. It is not going to be somebody that's in the same manufacturing, whatever. It's not going to be somebody in the same economic development pool. It's not, you're going to find different ones. So if you're not already developing your pool as being very, pool of resources, or your network is very diverse, you need to be doing that now. That would just be what I would say.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. I mean, you are a terrific example of what this show is meant to showcase and talk about and uplift. So I really appreciate all the things that you're doing, not only in your little island there, but everywhere across the world, in Africa and Poland, everything. I just think this web that you have created of connections is helping probably a lot more people than you even realize.
I feel that way. That's what I hope. That's what I hope.
Well, thank you for being on the show, Mary. I really appreciate having you here. And I will put all your contact information in the show notes, and we'll have people hopefully reaching out to you to help you on your journey, or, ask for your help. So thank you so much.
Just be a friend. Just be a friend. Yeah. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific 2 and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.